Well, before we met Sid, we'd become very, very serious about life. And it really basically, when we first met, we were very in love and knew that we met our partner for life. This was like in the late 60s. But then, we went along with a lot of the kind of thinking of the time. Around the time, a lot of people our age were really concerned about things that were going on in the world. And we started to have this feeling that the world really needs to change and we're going to be the change agents. But what came along with that was a lot of like negativity and how we saw the world and judgment. There was all of a sudden I became more judgmental than I'd ever been in my life. And so we were in this beautiful feeling of love for each other and promise of a beautiful life together. But then in seeps this kind of negativity that we thought was constructive. But as time went on, it turned into this search that brought us away from just being ordinary and enjoying our ordinary part of our life. And so that we became more serious. So that's where we were when we just before we met Sid. Like for a few years, we've been just having difficulty with our relationship. Basically, what was happening was we were on this serious search, and then Chip started to be kind of struggling with his happiness, and then that brought me into feeling unhappy because I thought, well, I can't be happy while Chip's not feeling happy. So, and it's not that I was perfectly happy, but I just felt this responsibility to just take care of everyone around me and not just enjoy myself, right? And so then in the middle of that, we hear about this person on Salt Spring who'd had this experience, this enlightenment experience. And we've been searching to have this experience ourselves. That was basically all the study of Eastern religions and everything was. The ultimate goal is to have an experience where all the unhappiness is gone and you're just feeling this total whole new experience of consciousness where everything's pure. And then all your troubles are over. You're just in this absolutely pure state. That's how we saw what enlightenment was. And that's what we wanted. So in other words, what I did was I lost my gratitude for what I had because I was always looking for something better. So I lost that feeling of being grateful for whatever my life was now. I'd be always looking to attain that perfection. And so then when we heard about Sid, and what we heard was this ordinary person had this experience, and we thought, no, that's not the way it works. And so we just dismissed any evidence that we saw that this person had anything valid about him. But then we started noticing some of our friends who'd happened to had a chance to listen to Sid, and we felt like they were selling out because they used to be able to have all these really deep discussions with us about what was wrong with the world. And we'd all, get ahead of steam and really get into it. All of a sudden they were getting happy. And not only were they getting happy, but they were getting their act together more in life. The couples were starting to get along and they were just enjoying being parents, the ones that were parents. They were just more contributing to the community in a positive way. But that looked like that wasn't what, I don't know, it just didn't look attractive to me because again, I felt like they were selling out. So that was the frame of mind that I had about Sid. But apart from that, I got to the point where I was so unhappy and physically unhealthy because of all the stress, the mental stress, and always trying to find like the most perfect diet and the most perfect meditation technique and how to really get along with people and socially. I was just, my head was so full of all this anxiety, and then the fact that we weren't really in sync in our marriage. We were arguing more, and just there was just so much stress and worry. And the big part of it was the worry. What will become of us as a couple? That was the me that was that met up with Sid that day, when some friends of ours, I was with them, and on Salt Spring, and they were going to visit Sid, and I was along for the ride. And so, and they had been listening to Sid. They were the first ones that actually told us about, this person they knew who had this experience. So the next thing I know, I'm walking into Sid's living room here on Salt Spring in 1975 in the summer, and his wife Barb had met me at the door, and I was so shy, very, very shy, and the only people I knew were this couple that had brought me there. And so then I remember walking into the living room, and I was introduced to this man sitting on the sofa. I'd never seen a picture of Sid or anything. I'd just heard about him. But I looked over, and I knew that was Sid. And I just remember he looked up when I was introduced to him, and he just had the most beautiful, gentle look in his eye. Just this quietness and serenity about him. And it took me off guard, because I was so wrapped up in myself, but there was something that just calmed me right down when I saw that calmness in him. And there were a few people in the room that were visiting Sid and Barb that day. So again, when they invited me in to the living room, I just sat somewhere. I think they offered me a seat, but I just sat on the carpet because I was just so shy and so insecure in those days. So then they were just, people were, I was introduced to everyone in the room, and people were just kind of having a conversation. And then all of a sudden it got quiet, and Sid started to talk in this really beautiful, calm voice, just saying one beautiful fact about life after another. Like, just like when you hear Sid on his recordings, that the way he shares one beautiful truth after another, well, that's what he was doing. That he just started sharing one beautiful truth after another. And as I sat there, I heard him say the first thing, and it might have been something about how life is more than we see with it's from this illusion, and just whatever it was he said. That I heard that, and I knew it was true what he just said. And then he keeps calmly talking, and then he said another truth, and I knew that was true. It's like everything he said, I couldn't argue with it. As I'm listening, I thought, everything he said is like the essence of all the wisdom I've ever heard in my life, like through my childhood faith, or through when I studied anthropology in college, and I studied the Native Americans and their worldview, or when I studied philosophy or read philosophy. Like, all the truths that I'd ever heard were in sync with what Sid was saying. So it was just like one truth after another just settling on me, to the point where I got so calm that I was not thinking about all my problems, which was usually where I was in my day-to-day life. It was all my problems were just running around and through my head. So I had this beautiful, calm feeling. And then Sid all of a sudden looked over at me, and he said, if everyone in this room and everyone in the world could see who they really are inside, and how beautiful they are inside, and that there's this whole other part of them that if they could see it, they'd have all the happiness they could ever imagine. And something in me changed that at that moment, that has never made my life turn around in a way that I've never gone back to that old life. Something happened so deep in that moment that I felt I let it in. I let in what he said. Usually if someone said, oh, you're such a beautiful person, or you got to, I would just deflect it. I didn't, but for some reason, when he said it, I let that in. And in that instant, I just felt like my whole life was spread out in front of me, like this beautiful pathway, and everything was going to be okay. I knew my life was going to be beautiful, including my marriage. I just knew it. And there was nothing on the pathway. I didn't know any details, but I just knew. And then the next thing that hit me, and I think this was actually the bigger insight in a way, was that it hit me, if all the wise people were trying to always tell us that we have to hear the wisdom from inside ourselves. They can't make us wise. We have to hear it. It has to come from within. So what hit me in that moment was, I'm looking at Sid and I'm thinking, it really looks like the wisdom is coming from him, but it has to be coming from me if I'm hearing it. So that means the wisdom was already in me. It's always been in me. It always will be forever. And in that moment, that was the first time I'd ever realized what the wise people were trying to say. I didn't just believe it or just think, well, that's nice that they believe that. I heard it. And that was the most amazing feeling. And then as Sid kept talking, then all of a sudden he changed gears and he said, if people could see that whenever you get into an argument with someone and you're not agreeing with somebody, if you keep the argument going and if you just want to win your point, he said, just try not to do that. He said, if you're in an argument with somebody, you're not agreeing with someone, if you can just let it go, whatever it takes to do that, just let it go and just drop your side of it. And I remember all of a sudden what hit me was, well, I can't do that, because I immediately thought of the person I'm argued with most, with Chip, and that well, I have to get him to see it my way because I'm right. And it just all of a sudden I got this attitude, right? But then again, I was in such a beautiful feeling that I just let that go. And I thought, wow, like, okay, I'll be open to that, because whatever this man is saying, it has so much validity to it, because it's obviously he's seeing something. And so I'm gonna give that a try. So then I just let that go, and I thought I was open to whatever would happen if in my next argument, right? And after Sid finished talking, and there was a little more visiting, and then I was on my way home, took the ferry home with my friends, and they dropped me off at the end of my driveway. And I remember walking up the driveway towards our back door, and I could still see it as if it were right now. And I'm walking towards the back door, and I'm thinking, because Chip and I have been on this spiritual search for answers, and together, that when I open that door and I tell Chip what just happened, he's going to be thrilled. I just couldn't wait to tell Chip.
For those of you who know the story, was Chip thrilled?